Recall from last year, simplifying integers. Do you ever wonder whether you should add or subtract? Don't think about it like that at all. Simply think about it as combining. You're combining -5 plus 7. So, do you have more negatives or more positives? We have more positives. How many more positives? Well, let's see. Do you see how I have 5 negatives and 5 positives? I can think of that as simply canceling these out, and I realize that I'm left with 2 positives. My final answer is simply positive 2. -5 plus 7 is positive 2 because I have 2 more positives than negatives. Let's look at this one. -8 plus 1. Don't think about whether you should add or subtract, simply think about combining. Do you have more negatives or more positives? You're right, you have more negatives. How many more negatives? Absolutely. Some of you said 7. You're right, because if I cancel out one negative and one positive, so these two are gone, I am looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I have 7 more negatives than positives. So my final answer is -7. -8 plus 1 is -7 because I have 7 more negatives than positives. -4 minus 2. Do I have more negatives or positives? You're right, we only have negatives here. I have 4 negatives and I have 2 more negatives, so my final answer has to be negative. It's simply -6. Does that make sense when you're simply combining, looking at what you have? Let's look at this one. -20 plus 12. Now you may not want to draw out all the negatives. Instead, let's simply think about it. Do you have more negatives or more positives? You have more negatives because you have 20 negatives and only 12 positives. How many more negatives? Think about it. You're right, we have 8 more negatives. So what's your final answer? -8, because you have 8 more negatives than positives. All right, we will continue to do a little more work with combining integers.